played Dota 2 for thousands of hours, but you've always wanted something more. A reason to fight, a deeper meaning to your battles. But to know the hidden history of Dota 2, you must go on an adventure of a lifetime. An adventure into the lore!
Recently, we got a huge update to Dota 2, one that many have been waiting for some time, and that, of course, are some map changes. Now, the Dota 2 map is the battlefield. It's our standard constant, where heroes can be the variables every single game. So to change the map is to change the game dynamically, in new and exciting ways. But not just the gameplay, my friends. No, to change the map is to change the lore in every single game. Now, we have seen many map changes in the past, and we have seen many of these changes have lore implications. In past map iterations, towers, when moved, would have small scratches indicating that they were physically shoved to the side. Outposts, shrines, and side shops, for you old schoolers out there, dynamically change the map and have led to many growths and changes to the lore as well. In the last example, it seems that the side shop owners Sithel and Quart have become pub owners, according to the 2020 Diretide video. Hey, by the way, did you know that this video made cats canon? Not like, Marana and Luna's mounts, those are like tame fantasy big cats, and not like Phantom Lancer's tribe, who are apparently like human sapient cats? No, not magical beings like the many cat couriers. No, just straight up a cat, a house cat, domestic cat. How does that work? It raises many Pluto versus Goofy kind of questions here, where the thought of a domestic cat in the same universe as a human intelligence cat is kind of messed up, but whatever, back on point. So yes, the map has changed before, but never in the history of Dota have we seen a map change quite as drastic as this. In the New Frontiers update, we got just that. New frontiers for us to explore as the map dramatically increased to be 40% larger. In this episode, we're going to cover every single new addition to the map and discover what lore implications this has. Hopefully, with a mix of research and a little bit of headcanon, we can go on an expedition across this new world together and discover not only the lore, but perhaps the future of Dota 2 itself. Before we can get there, though, we must start at the beginning. Now, before we get started, a word from our sponsor. Did you know that these videos cost money to make? It's true! My editor is a living god, and I must pay him for his quality. As such, I desperately pleaded to someone to sponsor this video on Twitter, and do you know who answered the call? Two-time TI winning team OG. Now, why did they do this? Well, Seb and No-Tail said to support content creation of the game that they love, and they wanted absolutely nothing for it. However, I am a man of checks and balances, so even if they didn't ask me to, I am going to promote their new merch line, baby. Go to the link below and buy yourself an OG shirt. Oh my god! Towels, hats, jersey, look at that! Is that a monkey? Click on the link. They can see if you clicked on this link from this video, so give them thanks for the content. Buy a hat. Show those Dota 2 guys that you love them too. There's going to be some non-canon reminders in this episode, so see if you can find them all. Okay, back to the lore. The New Frontiers update treated us to a new video. The last one, not including hero teasers, was, I think, Aghanim's Labyrinth, which, don't get me wrong, was incredible, but it's been a while. At any rate, this video serves to explain this map expansion, but it also certainly raises many more questions than answers. Let's go through the video in its entirety before we get to the map itself, because trust me, you're gonna need to know a lot of stuff. The trailer opens with Vengeful Spirit and a badass-looking dire creep rushing towards the Radiant Ancient. Now, I need to go over this right now. We have a lot to talk about in this episode, but I'm going to need to keep background lore very brief if we are possibly going to be able to cover all of this. As I'm sure you can tell from the length of this video, it's still going to be a very long one. So, if I say something that you would love to see expanded in its own episode, let me know in the comments, but we cannot afford too many tangents if we're gonna make this. So, short and sweet, if you didn't know, Radiant and Dire are two parts of a celestial consciousness, which is basically the left half of the brain and the right half of the brain, but they hate each other, and they have sworn to fight one another to prove which is the better system for all existence to be governed by: order and fate, or chaos and strength. Now, skipping a lot, Arc Warden is sort of the corpus callosum of this brain. He traps these two feuding ethereal consciousnesses into a prison made out of stone in space, floating, wandering moons. Now, eventually these moons will get caught in the orbit of a planet. They will use the energy stored up by rotating around the planet to gain power, and then spread their influence to control the stone of the moon until it eventually shatters and falls to the planet below. Once there, those fragments of the Mad Moon act as delivery systems for even more of a spread of this consciousness to the surrounding area, and eventually, when enough power has been gained from both sides, they have a grand battle. As I said before, think of the ancients as kind of a sentient rock cancer, multiplying and spreading their influence. Now, I bring this up because Venge is fighting for the Dire. She has been mind-controlled to do the Dire's bidding, hitting the Radiant Ancient. Okay, so let's move on. On the other side of the field, we see Skywrath Mage, a thrall of the Radiant in this particular multiversal battle. We'll get to that later. And he looks upon her with regret and sadness, letting out a sigh. Oh man. There's a lot of lore between these two, but that needs to be its own episode. Let me do this real quick. Short and sweet, Skywrath is a simp for Venge. They grew up together and he has always had a crush on her, and she was in line to be the princess. So he became the best of the royal guard, but there was a coup, and Venge's younger sister, who looks dope as hell, by the way, this card art of Imperia, the current Skywrath Queen, was released in the revamped artifact that nobody saw. Anyway, her younger sister cuts off her wings and throws her from the nest of thorns and assumes that she's dead. Venge calls upon Skrelok, the god of vengeance, to take her body and give her the power to revenge by any means necessary. Now, Skywrath, he failed to stop the coup, and he hates Imperia. However, despite being one of the most powerful mages of all the Skywrath people, this magic is tied to the royal family. You only get to tap into the magic if you are loyal to the royal family, so yeah. Skywrath Mage has to remain loyal to whoever wears the crown, aka Imperia, while he secretly tries to use his magic to help Venge reclaim her throne. Anyway, it's a very long and pathetic tale from Skywrath's side. Venge doesn't even, mention him in any of her lines. She doesn't really care about Sky at all. She has 3 lines where she kills him, and they're just kind of shit-talking him. It's pretty hilarious. Alright, anyway, Skywrath does not want to work against Venge, but again, the Ancients do what they do. They mind control either directly or indirectly the heroes to fight for their side. And these two very tied together characters are fighting against each other's goals here. Skywrath cues the Ancient somehow, and for some reason, we see Clinks, Dragon Knight, and some melee creeps smacking the Radiant Ancient. Hoodwink, Skywrath, and some Radiant melee creeps are stabbing the Dire Ancient, which I gotta tell you, the Ancients look a lot smaller here than I thought they would be represented. I mean, they're pretty massive in game, and unless Hoodwink is a freakishly large creature, she would be the size of, a really big squirrel, right? So the Ancient is, 5 fantasy squirrels tall? Jokes aside, I'm sure this is just a artistic decision. I hope so, anyway. Now, both Skywrath and Venge ready their auto attacks and throw a ranged hit to hit their respective Ancients, but they hit at the exact same time. Holy shit! Now, for you non-lore nerds out there, this probably seems, I don't know, neat, but if you have been tapped into the lore for the last, 6 years, you know that this itself is monumental. Let me explain. Alright guys, it's that time again. Let's talk about Artifact. Okay, now, very quickly, Dota 2 Universe Explainer. The Ancients fall to a planet. They slowly take it over, spreading their influence until they have enough accumulated power to fight each other once again. Eventually, one wins. The planet is basically destroyed or fully converted to one side during this buildup, and it becomes unstable, much like the moon that they break to get there. But boom, a victor is declared. However, Arc Warden just kinda watches while this happens, and when one ancient wins, the battle is so intense that the winner is very weakened by the fight. With one weakened to the point of exhaustion and the other basically defeated, Arc Warden swoops in, puts them back both in rock jail, and hurls it through space. This has apparently happened many, many times before, and the Ancients finally decided to make a deal. Now, these two dudes hate each other so much that they decided having their big-ass fight every 1,000 years or whatever, then being imprisoned for millennia, then breaking out over the course of decades or whatever was annoying. So, yeah, I mean, it feels good to win, but let's not forget the real goal. That is to kick you in the balls. Your writhing in pain and me going to prison for 10 years is worth it, but it's that kick in the balls that they really want. So, they made a truce. The Ancients agreed to prolong their battle into eternity by working together. When one Ancient wins, they both use their power to rewind time, right to when they are falling to the planet. They get to spread again, they have a whole new strategy for inflicting the most misery on each other as possible, and they fight once more. Now, this particular planet that they fell on right now is ripe with combatants who are incredibly varied due to the fact that it's a really weird cosmic epicenter of just weird shit that goes down. This is because Elder Titan, quote-unquote, broke it. It's a world where conflict is just drawn to it like a magnet. I mean, Weaver's here. He is a literal weaver of fate shoved into a mortal body that just so happened to fall on the planet. Ya boy, the end of the universe is here, Mr. Ice Cream Cone. I mean, this place is popping, and the Ancients decided, screw it. We're gonna work together to make sure that we can stay here forever so I can repeatedly kick you in the nuts, because that's how much I hate you. Now, this time loop is the game of Dota 2, straight up, non-metaphorically. Every single game of Dota 2 is canon. Every single cosmetic in Dota 2 is canon, because every game you play is the result of this universal time reset, with tiny variables being slightly changed by the Ancients so that they can have more meaningful battles. Whew! Alright, now with that out of the way, let's talk about Artifact. So, Artifact lore. This is, I guess, best said, it's in limbo. I mean, it had a fantastic start. There were many plans for where it could go, but it didn't go. So, what is real? What is headcanon? I'm gonna be real with you guys. I have no idea anymore at this point, but the main theory, if it was a theory or headcanon, again, I no longer know, but the point of Artifact was probably the following. Powerful groups realized that this time loop was happening and that it was causing drastic stuff to go down on like a universal level. We don't know what bad stuff it was doing, but suffice it to say, a group was created to find a way to break out of this time loop for all of the universe's sake. The group discovered something wild. There is a type of magic allowing you to tweak fate ever so slightly in one very small way. Go left instead of right. But the butterfly effect of time travel could make these tiny changes exponentially lead to different results. So, using this magic, the powerful group separates into factions who explore different ideals and groups and pits them against each other to make these small changes in the past and dynamically change the future across the planet. Now, with billions of choices and trillions of consequences, this was going to take some time. So they decided to make it into a game. A card game. Now, when you played Artifact, you were a member of one of these houses, using your enchanted relics, aka your cards, to manipulate battles being fought in the past, changing them just a little bit to have a butterfly effect of a new outcome. You were one of who knows how many trying to take over and implement changes to get your desired outcome, but as I'm sure you're asking, what was the point of all this? What was the desired outcome? The outcome was to kill the Ancients. You see, in Dota 2, you can't tie. Even if the situation in the trailer happens and both teams hit the Ancient milliseconds to the exact moment, Either Dire or Radiant will win. It's hard-coded in Dota 2. Now, in the lore, again, the winner soaks up the power of the loser, and together they both rewind time. But in Artifact, you could do something that you can't do in Dota. You can tie. If both Ancients die in the exact same turn in the same way in Artifact, which was granted very, very rare, every single card explodes. Both the Ancients explode, the towers explode, their influence is wiped from the board. Unlike in Dota, they die. This was the endgame goal of Artifact, to pull an Avengers endgame. Artifact came out a year before Avengers, by the way. Okay, it came out 7 months after Infinity War, but whatever. And then you find the exceedingly rare 0.01%, the 1 in 14,605,000, where both the Ancients happen to die at the exact same time. This kills the Ancients, not weakens them enough to be captured, not weakens one enough to rewind time for the other, the classic use of enemy's power against itself. Video game trope, number 1. We kill the Ancients doing this. We break through the time loop. We end Dota 2 chronologically. This has been, for the last 6 years, the endgame scenario of the entire Dota 2 universe. This is what Artifact was building up to. The end of the Ancients. Well, not so much. Let's go back to the trailer. Here is the end of Dota. Both Ancients have finally been slain through this 1 in a million chance. It's game over. But then, the planet starts to quake. Its rotten hollow core transformed into an ancient ore cracking open, but it's not exploding. It's growing. Mysterious structures rise from the glowing cracks, and 2 pillars of light erupt from the Ancients, shooting into the heavens, piercing the universe itself. What the fuck is going on? So yeah, the lore established 6 years ago. What we all thought was the end of the Ancients scenario was not. This is pretty insane. What happened? How do we explain this? Where are we going in Dota 2 lore? This is like if the Horcruxes of Harry Potter just ended up being a dank meme. To be frank with you guys, I have no idea where the Dota 2 lore is headed now that our goal has been proven to be wrong. But I do know how to find out. Let's jump into the map and explore these new changes, as perhaps studying the effects of this monumental moment around the map can give us hints as to what the future holds for all of Dota 2. So, to keep us on track, we'll go through each new map addition one at a time, exploring each new element and seeing how it impacts the lore, searching for any clues as to what the hell we just witnessed happen. So let's go in order here and start with our old friend, Roshan. Now, one of the biggest changes was to your grumpy old boy Rosh. Roshan now has a second pit, which he travels to. If you are like me and have trouble remembering where the hell he is in your games, just remember that Roshan goes to Florida when it's sunny. He travels south for sunbathing. Radiant during the day. Anyway, this might not seem like a big deal in the lore, but let me assure you, this is, this is real interesting. Alright, so, short Roshan lore. I have no idea what is headcanon or not anymore, I'll be real with you. Many of these Loregasm episodes have accidentally turned into canon, and then they forgot that it wasn't canon, so they revert. I don't know anymore. Anyway, how I remember it is, Roshan was a Shmeevil, who are commonly shopkeeper aides who help them do all their stuff. Now, shopkeepers are not just some dudes. They are, as you might have seen in the Dota 2 anime, people blessed directly with a covenant from the gods. You see, in Dota, you could become a god just by gaining knowledge, living. The more experience you get, the more powerful you become. In real life, there is a cap on experience and knowledge. In Dota, not so much. You keep learning, you keep growing, you literally ascend to godhood. There is no cap. No cap. This is why in the anime, Invoker is like literally a god. He is the smartest. He has surpassed all levels of everyone else. It's crazy. Now, in a universe like that, artifacts which bestow power can have drastic consequences. I'm sure you have seen this when a brown boots rapier Medusa team wipes you after coming out of the jungle at 25 minutes. Items in Dota 2 are overpowered. They shouldn't just be laying around, found by anybody. After all, they are what a hero truly needs. So the gods come up with a plan. They have an alliance to have all of their powerful artifacts held by shopkeepers. In Dota, gold is not money. Gold is a representation of your kill potential. The Stone Hall Decree said that soldiers got paid for being soldiers and showing up, which is reliable gold, but they really earned enough for a living by landing the killing blow on an enemy, unreliable gold. This encouraged soldiers on the battlefield to, be the one that killed shit. Thus, you win battles as soldiers all attempted to be the one that got paid for killing their opponent. The bigger the enemy, the more of a payout. Now, the gods loved what was going on in Stone Hall, and they implemented this system for their shopkeepers. When you buy an item, you say, okay, here are my badass murder tokens. I have 5,000 of them, so clearly I am smart and skilled enough to wield this item. Boom, it's yours. Now, this system only works if the union of the gods is upheld. You can buy items with murder tokens, but you can make deals like in the anime. No stealing, though, and certainly no killing. For the gods have agreed to share all their items in this space, but they also agreed to share their wrath to any that would harm those that peddle their wares. And Roshan is one such example. Roshan the Shmeeval was an aide to a shopkeeper. He attempted to steal a relic, the Aegis of Immortality, and was caught by said shopkeeper. Knowing the punishment of stealing would be the wrath of literally every god on the planet, the Shmeeval panicked, and he made it much worse, killing the only witness, the shopkeeper, and trying to escape. Well, he killed him, but the gods knew, and he received a punishment designed to remind every mortal of the consequences for harming a keeper. He was given what he desired most, immortality. However, it would be a punishment as he would be bound to his tarn, a little cave, and he would be unable to leave. His location known and his treasure forever bound to him, heroes would inevitably come to seek his prize and kill him over and over and over again. Unable to leave his prison with everyone in the land knowing exactly where he was, this would be his fate forever, killed indefinitely so that heroes could pilfer his wares, much as what he did to his shopkeeper. Now, that was the old Roshan lore, then things got a little crazy. Dire, as it is, spread throughout the planet and had its influence eventually reach Roshan's Tarn. Now, we don't know if Roshan's current form is from him getting swole from fighting against the world's best heroes every 5 minutes for who knows how long, but keeping his skills like some kind of horrific, depressing roguelike game, or if Dire itself gave him his current form to be able to fight off attackers, but then again, making him the Rocky Chad that you see before you, aligned with Dire. However, it is clear that Roshan and Dire did make a deal. If you are aligned with me for the eventual battle versus the Radiant, and I give you a fighting chance to beat the hell out of those heroes that constantly come for you, then I will make you an even better deal. When Dire's power is at its max during a specific time of the year, when the most slivers of Dire ore in the atmosphere of the planet from the Mad Moon are in the sky, Dire agrees to channel this power to allow Roshan to finally leave his Tarn. Roshan spends this precious freedom eating candy. That's the plot of Dire Tide. So yeah, with all that in mind, let's go back to the map. There are now 2 Roshan pits, but the lore of Roshan is that he is cursed to never be able to leave his pit. But now there are 2 pits. Going to the new Roshan pit, we see that it is Radiant themed as it's on that side of the map, and Roshan can apparently stay there too. This is pretty interesting. Now, first he takes the gate, which is, we'll talk about that later. It's also very strange. But you see, okay, why is it strange? Because there's a tunnel, a vast underground network of caves underneath Roshan's lair called the Underhollow. We played there during the Underhollow event where we were sent on a mission to find Rochefort, Roshan's cheese, which was retconned to exist only in the Underhollow. Originally, it was sold by a fur blog, which are bear men, so I guess you were drinking male bear milk. Or some mommy milk, potentially, that molded. Anyway, there's a vast cave system underneath Roshan's lair that he traveled in So it's technically part of his Tarn. That makes sense in the lore, but it was also retconned?
Did you know there are secret tunnels underneath Roshan's lair? I guess the entrance caved in, though.
Wait a minute, bro, what happened to the lost Meepo? There was a Meepo clone down there that was searching for Roshan's cheese. He was, oh my god, is he just dead? Wait, he can't be dead, or all the other Meepos would be dead, so he's just trapped down there. Trapped in the darkness, eating rotted bear cheese, alive in agony, for thousands of mushlings beating on him daily until he finally runs out of oxygen and Meepo dies. Well, I guess so. So yeah, now Roshan can leave his pit, and he doesn't even take the tunnels, which are explained in the lore and span underground of the map. That's a very lore-friendly way for him to travel, but no. He just walks out. So how do we explain this? Well, the Radiant Tarn is Radiant themed, and just because Dire made a deal with Roshan to be its warrior, well, it's very known that Radiant likes to pull the same kind of tricks. After all, this is Dota 2. Radiant and Dire convince your heroes or brainwash them to align with them. So it appears that Radiant built its own Tarn and convinced Roshan to be also its warrior. Now, this brings up several questions. For one, Diretide was part of that deal. What is Radiant offering to make Roshan align with it? Are we gonna see Radiant Wave? Maybe. Furthermore, why is this separated into a day-night cycle? Is Radiant more powerful during the day while Dire is more powerful at night? That kind of makes sense. I mean, all in all, I just kind of feel bad for Roshan. Radiant is like, what's Dire gonna do? Stop you from working with me? Take away your powers? I'll give you my own powers. Dire's like, don't listen to your mother. She's no good for you. Come home at 7 p.m. I have custody of you. Poor Roshan, he's the single child during a nasty divorce. Both of his guardians hate each other, but the only thing on the map that connects them is their adopted child. Woo, this is getting too real. I don't want to talk about this anymore. If Dire starts throwing empty beer bottles at Roshan when he goes to his mom's house every morning, this is going to look like my 10th birthday party. All right, moving away from Roshan, let's go to the gates. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to do this yet. We'll get to the gates. Let's go to the Lotus Pools. All right, so the Lotus Pools. Now, you anime lovers may recognize this. The Lotuses of Salamene are essential to the plot of the Dota 2 anime, or at least the inciting incident of that plot. Now, these were created in the anime so that all info about them is given to us there. But as a short sum up, these Lotuses grow from the moonlight, absorbing its power, which in turn can be used by the god of the moon on our planet, Salamene. There are two moons, remember, the normal moon and the mad moon. Now, Salamene gains power from the moon, so these lotuses that absorb moonlight give her power when consumed. Or so her followers think, because in the show, we see her stealing souls of her followers after they are fully devoted to her mentally and sexually. So, does she actually use these lotuses? Maybe Mene did, her alter ego, the bright side of the moon, but Salamene is the dark side of the moon. She goes straight for the source, straight for the sexy source. Anyway, yeah, anime lore aside, now these lotuses are canon in Dota proper, being on the map itself in Lotus Pools, and they do what was alluded to in the anime. They rejuvenate you when consumed using the stored energy of the photosynthesized moonlight. But, hold on. The entire plot of the anime is that these lotuses are sacred, and they are hidden in pools surrounding the shrine of Salamene, smack dab in the middle of the Night Silver Woods. The entire plot of the anime is that an elf from a coven that willingly left the woods to be cast out for choosing not to love Salamene went back and stole one of these lotuses in that sacred area. This starts both Luna and Mirana's anime arc, and again, this is the inciting incident for the entirety of the anime. So if these Lotus Pools are in the Night Silver Woods, what the heck are they doing here? Salamene's lotuses are hard-locked to the Night Silver Woods. You ain't gonna find these things dinking around in the forest. Mirana and Luna's entire real lore is protecting the border of the Night Silver Woods. It is hidden. Now we know that these are straight up the same lotuses from the anime. The symbols on the pool are the same markings of Salamene that are in the anime. They adorn a lot of the architecture, and they are on every single loyal soldier's helmet of the Dark Moon Order, Salamene's standing army. So yeah, these are the sacred lotus pools. But why are they here? Are we playing in the Night Silver Woods? Well, maybe. There is a map effect for it. I mean, map effects are canon, right? The ancients falling in a new location during that reset could possibly fall in a different location, and thus every single map skin is canon. The Lotus Pools, however, are in every single map now. Okay, noted. Let's move on. These are the Watchers. Watchers are new structures on the map that activate when you touch them and provide vision. When you kill Roshan, they also all turn on for the team that killed him. Anyway, let's take a peek at them. Now, the first thing to note, of course, is their similarity to wards. Now, wards are plants, if you believe that. It's kind of like a starting intro assignment they give to freshmen in wizard school. If you can craft a ward and plant it, it shows you things. It dies after a while because it is a living creature. It's a plant. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is like some kind of terrifying bioplant blood magic where they combine plants with eyeballs. It's pretty tame, though, in Dota 2 land. Sentry wards, however, are mutations created specifically to see hidden enemies by a, quote, fearful king who planted them around his palace gardens to look for Ricky-like assassins, those nasty Jasper Circle boys. Now, we do know one king that used to be very fearful of dying, maybe not so much anymore as he became obsessed with immortality and seems to achieve it, but I digress. So, Watchers are like wards, but very strange. For one, rather than biological plants fused with mammalian eyes, they seem to be stone with reptilian eyes. Now, we do see stone structures that do things and float in a similar manner, towers. However, towers are clearly different. There is no living part to them, and they're not bound to this battlefield. We've seen towers all over the planet thanks to Siltbreaker. Now, this leads me to the headcanon theory that towers are not created by the ancients. They merely adopted a existing technology that was originally on the planet. And they did so because it makes a lot of sense. Take over something that automatically shoots anything that comes close to their area of influence. That is some great area defense. But what was the original purpose of the towers? Well, the Radiant Tower has the same headpiece as Chen, who is a member of the Fold that worships Obelisk, which is clearly a play on the word obelisk, a stone pillar or monument. Now, the Fold kinda brainwashes innocents and converts them to their cult. That's their whole deal. Chen mind controls creeps, and my headcanon is that towers were built not to keep guard of the perimeter of the Fold's lands, but more to make sure that slaves were shot that were attempting to escape. These are enchanted stone guard towers. It's pretty messed up. Anyhow, Watchers do share the floaty magic that suspends towers, and am I crazy, or did Radiant Towers also used to have vines growing on them in a very similar way to these things, which, much like all the other Radiant architecture, represents the Radiant's influence on the structure as it wraps its earthy influence around it. Now, Dire Towers and buildings just have the Obsidian Makeover, which is its go-to redesign, but besides this vine, this thing looks pretty alien to me. Its architecture is unlike anything else on the original Battlefield map, and we see all these buildings on Radiant's side that appear to be relics of past civilizations or something. We don't have any explanation for this either, but we see all over the planet these structures thanks to Siltbreaker. So I'm not sure what's going on here. These structures are, if not Radiant created, at least created by someone on the original planet. But this thing looks nothing like those. Its reptilian eyes are also kinda not of this world when compared to the more mammalian eyes on observer wards. It's almost like a alternate ward from an alternate reality. Now, why does it have radiant vines but no dire influence when it's on the dire side or dire takes it over? I guess I'm just gonna stick with laziness? I mean, the eyes change from radiant color to dire color, but the model is stuck in radiant theme. I mean, it'd be cool if the branches burned off or the Watcher planted into the ground with some obsidian rocks, but I think that's more of a design limitation than how it's supposed to look. I really don't believe the Watchers are from this world. So let's talk about that some more in a moment. Next up are the Defender's Gates. Very interesting laser force field gates. Okay. These unpassable gates seem to be powered by the Ancients and only allow those that are aligned with them to pass through. Okay, well, that's pretty good technology. Now, they seem to stem from these old planet architecture pieces that I was talking about before, but they're powered by the Ancients now. Wake up, babe, a new ancient magical tech just dropped. The question, why don't the Ancients, wrap this laser grid around their entire base and make everyone buy a blink dagger? That would be a pretty good way to protect your barracks. Well, perhaps the answer lies in what is near these laser gates. The Tormentor. One of the strangest new additions to the map, the Tormentors at first glance are just bizarre. Physically, they have a lot of unique and odd features. For one, they're sealed away in a pretty high-tech gate that opens to reveal the cube part of it. This reveals what appears to be a well of some sort of magical pool. And the cube is chained as to keep its power contained or to simply just stop it from floating away. Also, the entire structure is surrounded by magical runes. Now, we've seen a lot of mysterious magical rune symbols before in Dota, and some of them have been discovered to be a hidden language. As we saw in the Aghanim's Labyrinth trailer, these squares spelled out recipes for the items of the Aghanim Scepter, and we saw those runes again in the Nemesis trailer. Shout out to Iboyax Gaming for his hard work on these translations, by the way. Great lore channel. Anyway, no. These aren't the same runes from those trailers, and these aren't the same runes we see on Omni Knight's default cosmetics, on Oracle. I'll be real, I can't find these runes anywhere else in Dota 2. I broke my brain trying to find them, and I got to look at this stupid rune that looked like a smug face mocking me the entire time. So, trust me, I did try to find these runes everywhere else. If you have found these runes in Dota 2, please let me know. Or if you found them in real-world lore, leave a comment and I will pin it. I have been looking everywhere for these runes. At any rate, these runes appear to control the mechanism of the gate, which keeps the Tormentor sealed in the magical pool below. With an even closer look, we can see the same type of radiant vine that saddles the Watchers also seems to be breaking through these seals, wrapping itself around them. Dire, strangely, has this same type of radiant vine on its side. Now, again, is this laziness in making the same model for both sides, or is this the lore? Personally, I'm going to go with laziness. But yes, much to see with what I'd refer to as the well. Now, let's take a look at the cube. The cube itself seems to be some sort of glowing magical thing with man-made decoration braces which keep this chain down and buckled into the well. It is surrounded by a magical sphere which zaps anyone who harms it right back with some magical shocks. Now, I know at first glance this thing looks like nothing we've ever seen before, but many of these features have been in this game before, and the secret is locked into what's inside the cube. When we crack open the cube, we find an Aghanim shard. Now, this is very interesting, as Aghanim shards were introduced in Aghanim's Labyrinth. The short and sweet lore here is that Aghanim, one of, if not the most powerful wizard of all time, found the secret to traversing alternate realities, and being a wizard and throwing caution to the wind, he leapt right in. It was there, in the multiverse, that he studied magics across time and space from all realities, and he kept a menagerie of powerful beasts from across the multiverse in what he called his labyrinth for study and having sex with, like Storega. That is real, by the way, look it up. Anyway, while Aghanim was having a ball traversing the dimensions, he did soon discover that he became lost within the flow and was unable to return to his home dimension until we came along. You see, Aghanim's greatest creation, the Aghanim Scepter, had a recipe for creation that countless heroes tried to replicate, aka you literally building it in your games. These hero-made scepters are cheap imitations, and they are prone to self-destructing, producing the Aghanim shards. Now, Aghanim used these cheap imitations as a sort of beacon to find his way home to his original dimension. So many heroes building replicas of his masterpiece drew him back. This is pretty similar to how gods work in Dota 2, as the more followers they have, the more power they gain. So with so many followers, aka you, building Aghanim's scepter in your games, and thanks to the ancients rewinding time over and over again, allowing you to do it indefinitely, Aghanim was finally able to find his way home. From there, he collected all the shards to combine them into his grand, real, once more, Aghanim scepter. Now, there were 2 Ag's Labyrinth events. The second one focused on Aghanim obtaining the Continuum device, which allowed him to more easily travel through both time, space, and the multiverses. I really need to make a whole episode on this, so we'll come back to it later. Very long story short, Aghanim is known for 2 things: traveling between multiverses and bringing things back with him to put in his labyrinthian prisons. Prisons? Why do I use that word? Well, remember how I said that this cube model has been seen before in Dota? It's from a pretty unlikely place. In the Monkey King release, a comic was included which gave us the only view we have ever had of Dark Reef Prison, a place where fishy convicts go in Slytherin society. The cube shape, the chains, this is pretty similar. In fact, in the Reef's Edge map, it allows us to go and see one of these confinement chambers of Dark Reef in person. Now, while this is very oddly similar to our mysterious tormentor, obviously, yeah, it's not the same, but let's break it down a little bit. Now, in multiverse stories, there are many things that become variables. They change throughout different multiverses, but some things remain as constants. Perhaps this cube with chains design is a constant when it comes to prison. Now, considering that Aghanim is known for traveling between multiverses, considering the cube attacks you with a powerful magic, and considering that cracking it open drops an Aghanim shard, this leads me to believe that this cube, this tormentor, is a interdimensional prison cell. Except unlike the cells of Dark Reef who hold bad fishies, this is meant to hold powerful, magical creatures. So if it's a cell, what's inside? Okay, this is where shit's gonna get a little crazy. So where is Aghanim's Labyrinth? I mean, we don't really know. It's said to be a space in between dimensions, I think. But what we do know is that it's separated into several rooms or sections, each with their own biome, which houses specific dangerous interdimensional magical creatures or species of which you fight. Another fun fact for you, each one of these rooms is designed in the shape of a square. Okay, obviously the trap rooms are not, but those seem to be hallways interconnecting these cube prisons, if you will, from one square to another. Is it possible that the Tormentor is one of these rooms? An empty, I hope, cell waiting for an interdimensional prisoner. Once captured, they are put into this cell, the cube is added to the prison, and there you go, another room for the labyrinth. This would explain a lot. For one, they drop Aghanim shards, much like you find in Aghanim's Labyrinth. The shards are the whole point. But again, they are fragments of Aghanim's power. You were collecting them in the first Aghanim's Labyrinth. Also, in Ag's Labyrinth, if you stayed behind in a cube for too long, what happens? You get shocked with giant magical bursts of damage. Now, added to the fact that this cube is designed like what we know a cell looks like in our universe, and the fact that Rubik also transforms anything he touches into a cube, he's Aghanim's son, by the way, this leads me to believe that this thing is just screaming Aghanim and his labyrinth. Alright then, so why is it so small? Well, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, I'm just kidding, I didn't watch that shit. But in my opinion, there's plenty of playing around with sizes when you're talking about traversing through multiverses. I mean, size change due to travel through portals and multiverses pops up all the time in sci-fi. I'm not going to get into the math of it, but suffice it to say, it would make a lot of sense for Ags to make his labyrinth micro. Shrink it down, all of his prisoners, and all of the visiting heroes. So that's my headcanon. While we're on headcanon, let's talk a little bit about the Wisdom Rune. Okay, so if you don't know about runes, I made a short about it, but very quickly, I think runes are chunks of the Mad Moon that were transformed by the Ancient, but now lack their influence. Basically, these shards of the Mad Moon that used to be ancient rocks, well, they have fallen to the earth as empty vessels, which then take on the attribute of whatever is around them when they land. We know that runes have a relationship with Arkwarden. He used to be able to make runes. We know that during the Nemesis event, shards of the Mad Moon are falling. Arkwarden is charging them up with stuff. They look like runes, so there you go. Each one of the runes in Dota are shards of the Mad Moon that fell and adapted to their surroundings where they landed. The Regen rune, it fell in a healthy forested green place. The Water rune fell in water. The Bounty rune fell on a pile of gold? I don't know. But the Wisdom rune. Well, let's take a look at this rune that really looks like no other rune. Don't even look like a rock, or at least it looks like it's man-made. Again, the Wisdom rune, which grants experience, something now only the defunct Tome of Knowledge used to be able to do, seems extremely alien to this world. Shield runes now also exist, which also have a completely different design to traditional runes, and it looks more like the architecture and color of the other new buildings. Looks a lot less like everything else from our planet. Okay, well, let's put this all together. So let's assume that our theory is right on the Tormentor. It's a cell in Aghanim's Labyrinth, a cell like those on this planet, like in Dark Reef, but it's just a magical multiverse version. And if you remember, the Watcher looks like some sort of alternate multiverse observer board. Now, the Wisdom rune, another similar but vastly different version of a rune. Perhaps all these together paint this picture, giving us hints about what exactly happened during the events of the New Frontier. Now, remember that Aghanim was called back to this universe thanks to heroes making his scepter. They made a beacon-like lighthouse guiding his way home. Remember as well that every time the Ancients rewind time, the universe dramatically changes. All Dota games are canon, the Dota anime is canon, and so is Dota 2 proper. In the trailers, we saw the Ancients shoot beacons of light into the stars. Could this mean that the death of the Ancients moment has them converging multiple timelines? Now, what if, in one universe, the Battle of the Ancients did happen in the Night Silver Woods? Well, this explains the map skin, this explains what Salamane's Sacred Lotus Pools would be doing here. Now, what if in a multiverse, Radiant made a deal with Roshan instead of Dire? What if the Shield rune was always a rune, the Observer wards were always made out of stone? Where do the past games of Dota 2, the alternate universes, go when the Ancients rewind time? Are they just lost forever? Or are they put in the same kind of realm between realms that Aghanim calls home? With this large-scale New Frontiers event between the Ancients, perhaps in their fury to rewind time once again, they mistakenly brought all of these past timelines together in some sort of great confluence. Nah, I'm not going to go that far. But it is interesting that a whole section of the map has very Aghanim-themed stuff. The Tormentor, the Wisdom rune, they spawn close to each other. It's weird that these things should not exist, like Roshan's Radiant Pit and the Lotus Pools, but now they're just suddenly here. The Shield rune, the Watchers, they seem familiar, but they're so distinctly different. It's a wild theory, granted. And to play my own devil's advocate, there's some stuff that does not fit into this theory. Alright, for one, the Twin Gates. Now we can clearly see these things rising out of the ground in the trailer. Seems that it's wet, much like the water-like substance that we see at the base of the well of the Tormentor. So if we are going with my theory, that is this glowing liquid from the space between time and space. A sort of river of time in multiverses. This works for everything, except for the gates. Alright, let's take a look at these damn things. Again, they have this Radiant-themed vine poking through that we see in the Watchers and the base of the Tormentor design, which doesn't even make sense to me. Like, look, shouldn't the right piece of wood not be able to come back through the original portal? Like, if we're operating on Stargate rules, the branch shouldn't come back through the portal onto itself, because there's the same model on both sides. They're identical gateways, but the portal thing is like a hole. So shouldn't the branch start in one and then pop out of the other one instead of both having the same model? Anyway, both of these are Radiant-looking wood roots, but clearly they have Dire and Radiant thanks to the colors of this spinny wheel part. Again, this seems less lore, more lazy modeling. Anyway, the fact that the stone and root thing looks like all the other new structures should really back up my theory, right? Well, not really. Check out the magic stone part of the portal. This circular glowing design is very reminiscent of another structure, one that existed before the New Frontiers event. The outposts. Now, the outposts are super weird. They always have been. Both, again, have the exact same look on both Radiant and Dire. They both have these weird glowing power rocks and circular floating rotation circles. Outposts even have these same Radiant roots as well. It really looks like the exact same type of technology, if you could call it that, of the Twin Gates. So, there's our first issue. The outposts existed before the New Frontiers event, and they look pretty much the same as the new buildings. So if this is a multiversal convergence thing, how can that be? Our other biggest issue is the base of the outpost. Did you ever notice that the base of the outpost is the Aegis of Champions? Now that is a big problem, because the Aegis is very attached to this Dota 2 Prime world. You see, the Aegis of Champions has been sitting in the shop this entire time. Now, granted, there's not a lot of in-game lore about the International, but suffice it to say, the Aegis has existed in the shop, which means that it exists in this world. You can click on it. It's canon. So, the outposts are built on a representation of the Aegis, which we know is primarily consisted from this Prime Universe, which makes the outposts part of this Prime Universe. And the gates look just like the outposts, so they should also be part of the Prime Universe too, right? Maybe. I mean, sure, I could try to explain it away. I mean, the outposts didn't always exist. Maybe the ancients did battle in a timeline where outposts existed, and they thought, hey, these outpost things are pretty neat, and they just took them back with them upon rewinding every time. This would explain pretty much every dynamic map change in a lore-friendly way, so that's kind of neat. Then the Twin Gates are just structures from that Outpost universe, one where they never developed the technology for TP scrolls, so they use gates to travel around the battlefield. Okay, sure. But why is the Aegis there? Aegis is locked to our universe. Unless the in-game lore International is a multi-dimensional thing. Perhaps the International is like a very special 0.01% battle, where the ancients have specific perfect timelines to have the perfect, strongest versions of the Dota 2 heroes, aka their champion forms, fighting in the Battle of the Ancients. And the Aegis of Champions is a relic which transcends all multiverses to hold the record of what happened in these mega optimal super battles. Did we just create the in-game explanation for the International and the lore? Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, this whole thing's quite a stretch. With all that in mind, are we completely off on our theory here? Is there any more evidence that we can collect about this possible convergence of alternate and past timelines and them dragging these multiversal structures like Aghanim stuff to this pivotal new battle? Well, let's get our boots on and go check out the map itself and see if we can discover any more evidence with a little on-the-field expedition. Now, upon loading into the map, you can see that it's 40% bigger. The majority of the expansion looks quite in line with the original map. There's more creep camps, which is to be expected. That's standard for this battle area. There's some sunken water pools. I like to call these the hot tub die machines. Don't ever go down there, kids. And new buildings. The Watchers, the Pit, the Tormentors, Laser Gate. Oh, Laser Gate! Now, don't you find it odd that the ancients don't surround their entire high ground with this gate? I mean, it's a pretty good defense. Must take a lot of power to keep these things on. After all, putting these in front of your mid-rack seems like a much better defense against heroes, so why is it here? Maybe heroes are not the biggest threat against the ancients. What is on the other side of this powerful gate? Well, it's the Tormentor and the Wisdom Rune, both of what I believe to be signs of Aghanim. Are these artifacts of Aghanim such a threat it is worth using so much energy to seal off this tiny direct path to them over any other critical attack point? Why else would the Laser Gate be here? An interesting thought. Anyway, Laser Gates and the Lotus Pools. Noticeably, we are lacking many things shown in the trailer. For one, the ground is not cracked and exposed to the magical well beneath. It just kind of looks the same. The ancients themselves look exactly the same. No shattered giant pillars of light shooting into the sky. They seem fine. So yeah, things look pretty normal, just bigger. Even the new structures, like the twin gates that are shown rising from the cracks in the trailer, those have stairs leading up to them in the old style of the old map, so it looks kind of weird, like they were always here, but whatever. Now, there are a few things on the map that are brand new, but you probably already forgot about them. 4 new parts of the map that, I'll be real, from a gameplay perspective, I have literally no idea why they exist. Have you ever, in any of your games, heard someone say, "Guys, gather at the wishing well so we can have our well wishes buff? I need that 1.5 mana regen." Granted, I say that now, but I'm sure this video's sponsor, OG, will be winning the next international with their incredible well wishes strat. Anyway, yeah, there's 4 new structures, if you can call them that exist on the Dota map, and they provide just the stupidest buffs ever. Let's go check them out before Valve deletes them. Alright, first up is the well. Physical characteristics, it is a small, shitty well. Look, thematically, it's consistent with Dota. It's got some flags at the top. We've seen those before. It's made out of wood. Okay, looks like garbage. Anyway, effect is Well Wishes, which gives you 1.5 mana per second. Yes, why go back to the fountain when you could sit here for 200 seconds? Anyway, lore. We do know that liquid does equate to mana. In fact, cold iceberg water helps with mana regeneration. Cool, crisp, clear water helps one to focus, meditate, and thus regain the power to use their magics. Crystal Maiden talks a little bit about this with her arcane aura description, and so does a description of the clarity. No, clarities are not gamer girl Crystal Maiden bathwater. They might be, but this well definitely is not. However, it must have cool, nice water in there if it helps heroes concentrate when near it, fulfilling their wishes of casting spells more. Great. On the opposite side of the map, we have the Mighty Mines. Now, we don't really have a miner hero in Dota. I guess we have Meepo. He likes to dig, but, you know, he's more of a Tomb Raider treasure hunter. He ain't really in the coal mines getting the rust lung to support his family, so I'm not sure the Mighty Mines have any relations to any of our heroes. They have a design that reminds me of the Tuskar Crypt part of Siltbreaker, but I don't know. It's not close enough for me to really talk about. The entrance of the mines is tiny as hell. Not even a fat little keen folk can fit through those double doors, which is ironic, as you know. Traditionally, the short little dwarven dudes in fantasy are the miners, but in Dota 2, keens are geniuses and not really dumb rock and stone boys. So, what's up with these mines? Well, time for some fun real-life lore. Back in the day, in the dark medieval mining period, things were pretty crazy. Down there, lit up only by candlelight, with all sorts of things a small, uneducated peasant brain couldn't understand, happened, like random cave-ins, weird noises, and sometimes people just seemingly randomly dying. Anyway, miners back in the day were a pretty superstitious bunch because of this, and attributed many of these hijinks down in the mines to tiny magical creatures. They would leave them gifts and talk to them and warn them that they were coming to mine. And if you were not likable, they killed you with their magic powers. Anywho, these were called kobolds. And one of the most famous signs of a kobold were these blue and green speckled stones, which were traps for miners who didn't respect the little creatures that killed you if you mined them. Now, science later explained that these little rocks actually had toxic gas fumes that escaped when mined, killing people, and the miners named these rocks after these little critters. We call this cobalt. That's pretty cool, huh? Kobold came before cobalt. In Dota, kobolds have a very cool design. They're actually colored just like cobalt, and this explains why you dig the little guys up with the trusty shovel. Kobolds are little miners who, according to the Prospector aura, are great at finding gold. So yeah, it's kinda neat. The kobolds of Dota are miners just like in real life lore, and wouldn't you know it, these little guys seem to be the perfect size for the door of the Mighty Mines. Except for, you know, the kobold foreman, who is a fat bastard and has never worked an honest day in the Mighty Mines in his entire life. Oh yeah, the Mighty Mines regenerates 4 HP per second. Wow, that's not bad. That's half a tango, guys. Great. Okay, off to the ancient camps to check out our new structures here. First on the Radiant, we see the statue, which gives the effect stalwart statues. Statues? Okay, guess the other one took the day off. Anyway, the model of this bad boy is actually interesting. Immediately reminds me of the Omni Knight statues that we fought in Soapbreaker Act 1, but it's not really that similar. What is similar, though, oddly enough, is that this looks exactly like the promotional art from the International 4. I mean, it's not just similar, it is literally the exact same design, but just with some strange hero we've never seen. Or have we? The black dark helmet? Those broad shoulders? Could it be the Black King from the Black King bar? No. But hey, that would be cool. Nah, it doesn't look like any hero in the game, really. It is really cool that this hero was immortalized in the same way that heroes that won the International 3 were. Perhaps this does give us more evidence of a multiversal convergence event where this is a cool Dota hero that won an International in his home dimension. Being in the mere presence of this grand alternate reality hero gives you +2 armor, which makes sense because of his big old shield. Could that be the Vanguard? No. Maybe the spear is the Dragon Lance? No. Perhaps he is a warrior of Mars that appears in the Ashen Legion? No, it's just some dude. Next, on the opposite side of the map, finally we come to our last strange addition, the Big Dead Dude. Now, this guy at the time of filming gives off the powerful aura of Dota Tooltip Modifier Bonus, which does, we don't know. Okay, looks like it does +5 damage for this single creep camp. Very nice. Research on the update page says that this is actually supposed to say the Graveyard and gives you the Graveyard Glyph buff. Wow, that is terrible. Honestly, Dota Tooltip Modifier Bonus is the superior name. I can see why they went with that. Oh, look, it's called the statue in the update page. That makes more sense. Anyway, the Graveyard. Not a real popular graveyard. There's only one dead dude here, but let's talk about him. Now, the old Reddit fam thought this was Elder Titan, which is... Guys, he doesn't even have the right amount of fingers. You can clearly see that in the picture. The top comment is, nice catch, lots of pieces fit. Is this what you people have been doing while I've been gone? Anyway, friends, the skeleton has 3 fingers and a thumb. ET has 3 digits, so no. Also, he has a herbivore face, which clearly this skeleton got some carnivore canines. So who or what is this thing? Well, if you look at the hero models, he actually looks much closer to Clink's. The horns are the same, the large canines are the same. Can't see the chin, but it might be the same. Speaking of hands, after equipping the skeletal claw of the Vandal, it looks exactly like it. Although the claw of the Vandal description says that the claw is actually not his hand, it's forged by Smeebles? What? Is this like a metaphor or something? Was Clink's forged by Smeebles? Because that is clearly that dude's hand. So yeah, anyway, it has a lot of similar features to Clink's, but it is obviously not Clink's because Clink's is just a little guy, and this guy is a big boy. But the similarities are pretty telling. Perhaps, then, it is Meraxiform. You see, in Clink's lore, the demon lord of the Sixth Hell comes to his homeland, and the Eternal King says whoever can kill this demon will be granted eternal life. Clink's releases his last arrow in this battle against the demon at the same time he is set ablaze by a killer hellfire attack, thus activating the immortality spell at the same exact second that he is horrifically dying. Now, Clink's is immortal, but he feels the horrible pain of being burnt alive at all times, which turned the once heroic figure into a crazy asshole. Here's a fun fact. Clink's chest, it looks very similar to the Aegis of Immortality, and he is immortal. That's pretty neat. Anyway, so yeah, the demon came to Clink's lands. Perhaps he twisted one of Clink's people, took over his body, made it a giant demon form, and this is his corpse. Well, the evidence of the arrow that killed him is not there, and sadly, there's a set called Meraxiform's Fate in the game, which the boat description says it was made to look like Meraxiform's expired visage. Now, that expired visage is clearly not the same as the dude we're looking at the ground here, so unfortunately, we're back to square one. Now, our only other clue is the clothing, if you can call it that. The remnants of what appear to be pants, or maybe some kind of cape, as we see some of it on the bottom of the ribs there, is pretty reminiscent of Wraith King. That looks like something he would wear. The color of the cloth and the necklace line up kind of perfectly. But, yeah, besides the colors, I don't know. I mean, clearly our big boy here is some sort of demon or something. It's got big old horns and teeth. That's not really Wraith King's MO. His little skelly boys do have a very similar loincloth-looking thing, but again, we're missing a lot of the key features like horns and teeth. The color scheme of gold and greenish is also part of Necrophos. Now that is interesting. No items reflect this necklace object, but honestly, my first reaction to seeing this thing, it looked like a censer from religious ceremonies. Which, okay, I know this is a stretch, but it's really interesting because it has Necro's colors. You see, Necrophos used to be part of the Romanesque Faithful. These are basically the Dota 2 version of the Catholic Church, who are currently on a crusade to eliminate any and all members of the undead. I mean, I could for sure see Lady Ansu or one of her zealots wearing this bad boy around their neck. So what's it doing on the neck of a giant demon skeleton? That I do not know. Alright, headcanon on this guy? I'm gonna go with Miraxiform. I mean, he just looks so similar to Clinks. The demon aspect could explain why he's wearing a religious-looking thing around his neck. Perhaps he took it as a trophy from killing a high-ranking pope of the Church of the Romanesque Faithful. Maybe one day we'll get a little more info on this big boy, but I'm just gonna pretend. And with that, we've seen pretty much everything added to the map in the New Frontiers update. With all of this in mind, can we come up with a theory for what exactly happened at the end of that incredible trailer? Well, we can try. In their final moments, right before their true death, both ancients desperately rewind time once more with all of their combined might. This burning brightest before their extinguished flame moment works, but with some unintended side effects. Fragments of the old multiversal battles are drawn forth from the river between time, transforming the planet into an epicenter of multiple universes converging in one new mixed battlefield. This unstable rewind has acted as a beacon for other powerful dimension-hopping beings who now know the location of the ancients and can pinpoint the source of their universe-destroying actions. Signs of Aghanim have appeared as his machinations rise on the battlefield, watching, setting up outposts, stockpiling provisions for a goal soon to become known. The ancients know that this beacon has been lit and must now focus their defenses against these new threats. But what will happen now? Now that the universe knows where the ancients wage their war, no longer hidden, will their actions against the universe remain uncontested? Or do their beacons of light shooting into the cosmos call to other powerful beings? Beings which have had their own plans to harness their immense power? Or does it signal like-minded consciousnesses, other fragments of the original splitting of the primordial mind? Either way, the constant manipulation of time and multiverses is now showing its effects. And while the ancients may still be alive and fighting, surely change is coming. So that's it. The future of Dota 2 lore is changing. Hell, after the last blog post about TI, the future of Dota 2 is changing. We live in turbulent times for Dota. No one knows what's next, or what the future holds for any of us. But there's one thing that I do know, and that's that we're gonna be okay. Because through it all, even though the future is uncertain, I know that we will be here together. All of us, through all of our thousands of hours of adventures. Well, we're not going anywhere. Some might call it sunk costs, others might call it obsession, but I call it family. We, as a community, have seen so much, not only in the lore, but in the game that we love. Dota is our home, and together, even though some of us can be toxic or crazy or pudge players, we are a family. And family is forever, no matter how insane they are. So lore nerds, Dota nerds, brothers, sisters, and everything in between, I say to the future, bring it. Bring on the future, whatever it means for Dota 2 lore, Dota 2 esports, and Dota 2 in general. No matter what happens, we will face that future together. So in these times of uncertainty, do what you do best. Go play some Dota. Go pub with your friends. Go watch some games, and go read some lore. We are Dota players. No matter what happens, we don't have a surrender button. No matter what the future holds, we will always have each other. Before us lay new frontiers, and I wouldn't face them with anyone else but you. Guys, I don't know why you're still patrons, but I will say that I am looking to get back into Loregasms now and start making video content yet again. I got bored. I had a lot of shit going on, but now my calendar is open, my life has opened, and I am returning back home. And thank you so much to the patrons of the past who have, really got us where we were today. Thank you so much to Sean Baker, the Sheep Eater, and of course the Dupe, who supports so many people in the Dota community for so many years. Thank you guys. I've never officially thanked you by name on one of these videos, and it's about damn time. Anyway, thank you for making it through an hour and 9 minutes long lore video, guys. I will see you next time. Goodbye, Dota community. Thanks for watching.